So Moses went up the mountain and was before God and communicating with God for 40 days and 40 nights until he received the tablets. The people didn't know how long he was going up there. I don't think he knew himself how long he was going to go up there. But this created a rift or a disturbance in the people of Israel, and we're going to learn about that today. Exodus 32 and 1. When the people saw Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, they gathered up together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, make us gods to go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." This whole scenario here is very embarrassing. And the worst part is that it's a reflection of us as modern day people as well. So we have all these wonderful miracles. We have all these great events that the Israelites have seen. They've gone through all of this, getting delivered out of Egypt. It's not that long ago that they were slaves in Egypt. Then they got delivered out of Egypt and made their journey to this point in time. And then you have all the miracles involved with Moses going up in the mountain, and then all the smoke and fog and just all this intensity and the earthquakes. And so they've experienced a lot. And I'm sure when he was first going up there for instruction, Moses was going up for instructions, the people, it was like they really were excited, like a roaring flame, to see this happen, and that he was going to get this instruction and he was going to come back and he was going to lead this people. But as the days go by, that flame is starting to dwindle. They're losing faith. They're losing hope. They don't know if Moses is ever coming back. The first week was probably tough, and then every day after that, it just got worse and worse, where it's like they don't know what to do anymore. They want to worship something, but they don't have Moses back, so they're going to Aaron and seeing if he can provide a solution for them. Exodus 32 and 2. So Aaron replied, "Take the gold rings from the ears of your wives, your sons and daughters, and bring them to me." 32 and 3. So all the people took the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. So Aaron, under his own discretion, is collecting all of this gold, and he's preparing it for a purpose. Exodus 32 and 4. And he received the gold at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool, and made it a molten calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, which I brought you up out of the land of Egypt." This is one of those Bible verses that there's a lot of commentaries on. How was it made? Why was it a calf? What does a molten calf? What does that all mean? With the description of the graving tool, it implies that maybe they took all this gold, melted it down into a block, and then it was carved into this molten calf. That's one idea. There's another idea that there was wood that was carved into the molten calf, and then the gold was kind of hammered onto the wood, so it would become a golden calf. The other thing to support this idea is that gold is really soft, and usually it's to do the fine tuning. It's more of a filing than a carving, and the graving tool sounds more like a chisel. So you don't really chisel gold, so that kind of supports more the idea of it being a wood thing that is covered in gold. We don't really know the size, we don't know how big this thing was, so it's hard to say how exactly that happened. Some say that the molten bowl, or the bowl in general, came from the Egyptian deities, that it was a representation of their religious practices. Now, the Israelites, they were in Egypt, but they weren't bound to follow the Egyptian religion. They weren't integrated into the society. They were separate and distinct. Yes, they were slaves, and yes, they were worked really hard and probably beaten very severely by the Egyptian slave masters. So maybe they heard about or saw the Egyptian religion, and so they have these bowls. Now there's two that stick out. There's Apis, A-P-I-S, and Menevis, M-N-E-V-I-S. But their worship was usually more of worshipping living bulls rather than idols constructed of them. But then again, maybe this is the method that Aaron chose to differentiate it. Because they would have had bulls there with them. They could have just worshipped one of them, but I don't know what was going on. Then beyond this, we have the idea that maybe this image here came from something previous, before the time of Egypt, some sort of Babylonian or some sort of historical aspect that they had going on. And he was making the representation of that item. A lot of the reason why I think cows are worshipped around the world deals with the utility value of the cow. First, the cow is a very strong animal, the bull here, or castrated bull, an ox, pulling the plow to plow the field. And then you can hook the animal up to a mill and crush the barley. Or in transportation of different items, hook it up to a wagon or a cart. Now, I think the difference between a wagon and a cart is one has 4 wheels and the other has 2. So anyway, I guess that doesn't really matter. And then the other aspect behind the utility of the strength and power of the cow is the dung. The dung is dried and it is used as a fuel source. And throughout the world, even to this day, cow dung is used as a fuel source for staying warm on cold nights. People cook meals with cow dung. It dries, it's got a lot of energy in it, it's relatively easy to start, and it burns for a long time, which is what you want to have burning in order to be able to stay warm at night. Probably doesn't smell very good, but it's just grass that's kind of digested and solidifies, and it's just a great fuel source. So it makes sense to some level to see the cow as their object of worship, right? It's quite common in a lot of other cultures. There's reasons for it. And then you got the whole thing with the life and the creation of life and that portion of it as well. So it's not like this cow here in Israel is something that is totally unique and not seen anywhere else. This was a common thing the pagans were doing. But now we have this molten calf. I don't know what it's got going on there, but it doesn't really matter. This is a false god created by Aaron, and the Israelites are going to worship this thing. I saw some of the commentary saying that maybe he was trying to make this molten calf as a symbol or a representation of God himself. So maybe there was something there and he was just misguided. You know, he didn't have the 10 Commandments yet. He had to wait a couple more days. So whatever's going on there. I guess the time frame of this is something as well, right? Like, when did they start worshiping this calf? We know that Moses went up to the mountain, and we know that he was there 40 days and 40 nights, and when he comes down, he sees this disastrous scenario. But at what point in time was this thing all created? When did the Israelites lose faith and require this idol to move on? Exodus 32 and 5. And when Aaron saw the molten calf, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord." 32 and 6. And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. So we have the idea here that Aaron is using this molten calf as a substitute for God, and they have this altar built and they're worshiping it. They're doing these different offering types. They have this big thing going on and they're singing and dancing and celebrating. They are worshiping this idol that Aaron made the previous day as if it was the living true Lord God. Exodus 32 and 7. The Lord said to Moses, "Go down, for your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves." God knows what's going on. He's not shocked. He's not surprised. But he's letting Moses know of the situation in the time that he's been up on the mountain, now that they've concluded their meeting, their conversation, Moses' education, as well as obtaining the tablets of the commandments. Exodus 32 and 8. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and sacrificed to it, and said, These are your gods, O Israel, that brought you up out of the land of Egypt. God is explaining the situation to Moses so that he has an understanding of what has transpired in the time he has been communicating with the Lord. Yes, it's been 40 days and 40 nights. It has been a very long time. But what about Aaron? What about the elders of Israel? Why have they not prevented this from happening? Instead, we have Aaron making this idol when he was the one that was supposed to help the people of Israel and steer them away from this incident in creating this idol. But he makes it himself. That's just what's so crazy about this whole situation. Exodus 32 and 9. And the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. So here we have a metaphor comparing the people of Israel to an unruly horse. It doesn't really want to go where the rider is directing it. It has a mind of its own, doing its own thing, and not being in obedience. So the people of Israel, they're obstinate and perverse. They're not listening to what God desires, and they're doing their own thing. Exodus 32 and 10. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and that I may destroy them, but I will make of you a great nation. So here we have God communicating with Moses and telling him, don't hold me back, don't stop me, I will destroy this people. God is talking of destroying all the Israelites and starting over and using Moses' seed to bring forth his plan rather than using the Israelites. For the Israelites, their disobedience right here is very grave. They're worshiping this idol that they made by their own hands. They have perverted everything. And God, he doesn't need them. He can fulfill his promises to Abraham by using the loins of Moses to create a new nation from Moses. Exodus 32 and 11. But Moses besought the Lord his God and said, Lord, why does your wrath blaze hot against your people, whom you have brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? Exodus 32 and 12. Why should the Egyptians say, for evil he brought them forth, to slay them in the mountains, and consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath, and change your mind concerning this evil against your people. This scenario reminds me a lot of what we saw previously in Genesis 18, when we saw the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and Abraham negotiating with the Lord to try to prevent the destruction of the righteous with the wicked. And that all culminates with taking Lot out of the city before the destruction. Here we have Moses negotiating with the Lord, communicating with the Lord about the Israelites. Moses doesn't say that the Israelites deserve this salvation. They haven't earned it. The Israelites have really messed up here this time, and he sees from on the mountain and the description that God has given him of just what has transpired, and he knows they are 100% in the wrong, and they do deserve this destruction. His angle for negotiation is very different. It is not about destroying the righteous with the wicked. What we have here is God's holiness, God's power, God's ability. He doesn't want God to be mocked. God went through all this effort to get the Israelites out of Egypt. And if he just takes them out of Egypt to destroy them, what will the other people say about God and his abilities? Right? So this is a completely different reason here to prevent the destruction. The holiness, the mightiness of God, God's greatness would come into question if he just brought the people out here to kill them. And that is the angle that Moses is using when pleading for the Israelites. Exodus 32 and 13. Earnestly remember Abraham, Isaac, Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self, and said to them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens, and all this land that I have spoken of will I give to your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. So God has a backup plan set in place. And we see Moses here negotiating with the Lord. This is probably the highest moment of Moses here. This is peak Moses. This is probably the greatest event in his life, when he's pleading for the Israelites to survive, that they will be God's people. Exodus 32 and 14. Then the Lord turned from the evil which he had thought to do to his people. So here we have God changing his mind. And this is almost as if it was a test for Moses and Moses' character, approving of the character of Moses. Exodus 32 and 15. And Moses turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hands, tables or tablets that were written on both sides. 32 and 16. The tablets were the work of God. The writing was written of God, graven upon the tablets. So here we have Moses. He's done his communication with the Lord. It's been the 40 days and 40 nights, and he's emerged. And he has these 2 tablets with him, and they're engraved by the finger of God. And he's making his way down. And as we recall, when he was originally going up, he had this group of people with him, the elders of Israel and Aaron, and they kind of camped out partway up the mountain, and then Moses went on alone to the peak. Exodus 32 and 17. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. So Moses has now reconnected with the group that was camping on the upper portion of the mountain. And Joshua is pointing out that there's chaos down below where they're worshiping this idol. Exodus 32 and 18. But Moses said, it is not the sound of shouting for victory, neither is the sound of the cry of the defeated, but the sound of singing that I hear. Now that Moses has reconnected with the elders there and Joshua, they're going to make their way down the mountain. And Moses is hearing the sound of the singing and the dancing, and he's explaining what it is that he is hearing. Exodus 32 and 19. And as soon as he came near the camp, he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger blazed hot. And he cast the tablets out of his hands and broke them at the foot of the mountain. God told Moses what the situation was when he was at the top of the mountain, and he has now made his way down to the bottom, and now he gets a full view to see of the perversion that has occurred. He sees the calf, he sees the dancing, he sees all of this. And he is incredibly angry and agitated from this situation, this scenario. And he throws down the tablets and they break. Exodus 32 and 20. And he took the calf that they had made and burned it with fire and ground it to powder and scattered it on the water and made the Israelites drink it. So Moses is crashing this party. He sees what they're up to and he does not approve of it. God doesn't approve of it. He was going to wipe them off the face of the earth. Moses doesn't approve of it. He comes in there. He ends this party. He grabs their idol, the idol that they made, and he throws it in the fire. It's consumed by the flame, then takes the ashes and makes the Israelites drink their sin. This is probably a process that took some time, right? So they would all be there solemnly watching Moses as he's doing this thing. They know they screwed up. At least I hope they knew they screw up at this point, and maybe Moses explained to them how they've fallen short at this juncture. And as this thing is burning in the fire, then makes them drink the ashes of this idol that they made. Exodus 32 and 21. And Moses said to Aaron, "What did this people do to you, that you have brought so great a sin upon them?" So we have Moses interrogating Aaron of what has just occurred here, and this idol. For he knows that Aaron made this idol. I'm sure somebody there explained to him, oh yeah, Aaron made that, right? And because Aaron was the spokesman, God would explain things to Moses, and Moses would tell Aaron, and Aaron would tell the people. So they had a lot of trust in Aaron, that Aaron would look after them. And here we have Aaron making the idol that the people desired. Exodus 32 and 22. And Aaron said, "Let not the anger of my Lord blaze hot. You know the people, that they are set on evil." 32:23. For they said to me, "Make us gods, which we shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." So the people didn't know where Moses was. They didn't know what was going on. They wanted their object of worship. So they went to Aaron. And Aaron, he didn't rebuke them and say, Moses is coming back and he's going to bring this stuff or whatever that we need. No, he just went along with what the people were saying. So even Moses' own brother, who witnessed Moses communicating with God how many times up to this point, didn't have faith in Moses' returning, and he complied with the people. If anything, that's probably the worst there is as far as unbelief goes. Exodus 32 and 25. And when Moses saw that the people were unruly and unrestrained, for Aaron had let them get out of control, so that they were a derision and object of shame among their enemies. 32 and 26. Then Moses stood at the gate of the camp and said, "Whoever is on the Lord's side, let him come to me." And all the Levites, the priestly tribe, gathered together to him. Some of the translations refer to these people as being naked at this juncture in time. And we know that in other cultures, and pagan cultures and pagan idolatry, that they would often have sex acts being performed in their worship. So there's a possibility that there were orgies and crazy things going on during this event. And Moses was just seeing that now. He was just focused on that idol and destroying it, that he didn't really realize just how bad this situation was. That idol just stuck out to him, and it just hurt him personally, that maybe he didn't notice all this other stuff going on immediately, or didn't really register it or process it. And now that that idol is destroyed and he had the people drink it, he's noticing just how far they have fallen. And now he's standing on the outside of the gate, standing on the edge, and doing a call out to gather the people who want to serve the Lord. Exodus 32 and 27. And he said to them, "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, every man put his sword on his side, and go in and out from the gate, to go throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor." So we have the Levites here, the priestly tribe, gathered together before Moses. And Moses is giving them instructions from the Lord to slay all these different people, to slay these idolaters. This would be very hard to do, slaying their brothers, their companions, slaying their own family members, their friends, their loved ones, choosing to serve the Lord rather than to serve the flesh and the desires of the flesh, making that choice. Exodus 32 and 28. And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. 32 and 29. And Moses said to the Levites, by your obedience to God's command, you have consecrated yourselves today as priests to the Lord, each man at the cost of being against his own son and his own brother, that the Lord may restore and bestow his blessing upon you this day. So this event here, we have 3,000 dead. That's quite a few, but when we think of the actual numbers of people here, it is not that high of a percentage of the actual people, the Israelites that have left Egypt. I mean, it's definitely a lot of people, and don't want to say that's insignificant or anything, but anyway, and this is the event that is going to make the Levites be the priestly line. Exodus 32 and 30. The next day Moses said to the people, you have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. I'm sure this is a very sad, solemn day in the camp when the people of Israel have realized what they have done, and that they have all their friends and family members, their relatives, the people that they knew and did stuff with. Some of them have died. There's been a lot of death in this camp, and they know that they have fallen short. They probably have a lot of clarity right now that God has delivered them through all these events, and this is how they repaid God for all those wonderful things that he did in getting them out of Egypt. That they did this idolatry and the consequences that have come about from doing this, even though they swore to the Lord not too long ago. Moses is now going to go up the mountain and communicate with the Lord to plead for these people. Exodus 32 and 31. So Moses returned to the Lord and said, oh, these people have sinned a great sin, and have made themselves gods of gold. 32 and 32. Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, and if not, blot me, I pray you, out of your book which you have written. This is a very sad and somber moment. Moses has seen all that the Israelites have done. He knows of their sin, and he is pleading with the Lord for forgiveness. He has no ability to pay for forgiveness. He can't make anything right by his own actions. There is nothing that can be done. This is irredeemable, what they have done. There is nothing that can be paid as a ransom for this. So it's all up to God's ability to forgive and be merciful. The second portion of this is that, well, there's a couple of interpretations. One is that if God has to wipe these people out and destroy them, Moses doesn't want to be alive anymore. He wants his name taken out of the book of the living and not to be alive anymore. Now, the second aspect, or the second interpretation, is more of an internal thing, eternal, in that he doesn't want to be in the resurrection. He doesn't want to spend eternity with God. He would rather be in damnation, to be damned to hell for eternity, than to be before God, knowing that this entire group, like his people, the ones that he led out of Egypt, were destroyed for their wickedness. Exodus 32:33. But the Lord said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him, not you, out of my book. We see this verse and many other verses have similar ideas. There's this common idea that the sins of a person are responsible of that person themselves. That the sins of the father, the sins of the brother, the sins of whatever, that they are on the individual person, that they can't be transferred around. Moses can't take the sins of the Israelites in this instance and pay the price for them. He's not able to do that. The only one that is able to pay for the sins of someone else is God. And we see that in the New Testament with the crucifixion. When he was up on that cross, he took the sins of the world and died for them. And he was only able to do that because he was without blemish and he was perfect. God had to become a man and live as a man and be perfect in his generations as a man in order to be able to take the sins from other people. Exodus 32 and 34. But now go, Lead the people to the place of which I have told you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I punish, I will visit their sins upon them." So now they need to get back to business. And God has explained some of how sin works to Moses, that he probably now has a much greater understanding. And anyone who reads here in Exodus will learn this as well. So it's kind of cool that way. And the angel's going to lead the way again, and they're going to continue on in their journey. Exodus 32 and 35. "And the Lord sent a plague upon the people because they made the calf which Aaron fashioned for them." So here we have a judgment from the Lord coming down on the Israelites, and I'm sure this plague here is probably going to be pretty bad. And to the people that died by the sword the day before, maybe that was a mercy compared to what this plague is going to be, for it's going to really be devastating.